Hello everyone, and we're back with another Mission Impossible episode review. This time I'm doing Season 5, Episode 14, which is called Takeover. So this one starts off with a meeting of disgruntled college students, led by a guy named Billy Walsh. As the meeting ends, Billy calls Deputy Mayor Charles Peck, demanding some money for his services. Peck worries that Mayor Steve Tallman doesn't have the guts to see their plan play out, and tells policeman Ross to keep an eye on him. Jim goes to a fortune teller's shop for instructions. The mission: Peck plans to set up Tallman for governor as a law and order candidate by having Walsh stir up violence during the upcoming protest week and blaming the current governor for not dealing with it properly and swiftly. The IMF must prevent the violence and put Peck out of business, as it makes the U.S. look bad on the world stage and so forth. I'm really kind of getting sick of that excuse, but anyway. There's an apartment scene where the IMF makes plans without giving too much away, which is sort of refreshing. Off the IMF goes, and Dana sneaks into the office administration building and allows herself to get caught trying to burn some records. Meanwhile, Doug gets himself pulled over by the police with no license or registration, and a cadre of weapons and ammo are found in his trunk. He tells Ross nothing except that he works for a man named Sanford Michaels, who is probably willing to make a really nice donation to the police force to have the matter swept under the rug, as Dana is brought into lockup. Barney, as the governor's special rep, as a police enforcer of some sort, comes in to help the force prepare. Jim meets Peck as Sanford Michaels and says he likes what Peck and Tallman represent and is willing to help any way he can. Paris calls Tallman, dropping the name of Tallman's old girlfriend, Elizabeth Wilson, saying he has a message from her and demands to meet in person. Barney shows Ross, Tallman, and the police chief some files on known provocateurs, including Dana as Catherine Wilson, aka Kate Thomas, who Ross recognizes from the station. Ross tells Dana she's been bailed out by Billy, who shows her some of the things he has planned and says he needs her help to train others how to cause the mayhem that they want to have happen, and also that he plans to kill a police officer by setting explosives in the dean's office as a trap. Dana suggests to the group that instead of using the dean's office, they should go to the mayor's office and have a sit-in there. Billy reluctantly agrees. Jim, as Michaels, tells Peck he's ready to donate $1 million to his campaign, but he wants to meet with Tallman first. Barney sneaks into the closet next to Tallman's office, taking some measurements and cutting some of the wall out. The mayor arrives to meet Paris, followed by Ross's man. Paris says he's Richard Jones, shows him Dana's birth certificate, actually Catherine Wilson's birth certificate, and says he was the one who arranged to let Tallman think that Elizabeth had died in childbirth, after Tallman had abandoned her when he found out she was pregnant. Tallman recognizes it as a shakedown, of course, and Paris says he wants 10 grand. Dana shows up soon afterwards, and Tallman recognizes her from the mugshots. Dana says she wants money too to keep quiet. Tallman hands it over, telling them to get out of town. Ross busts in shortly thereafter, taking Paris down to the station where he confesses to Tallman's dismay. Peck tells Tallman that taking over the mayor's office was Dana's idea, and he intends to make sure she's the one who's blown up. Ross puts Paris in lockup, telling him that he'll be let out after the election if he stays quiet. Paris, of course, has smuggled a lockpick in his boot and so is able to leave at his leisure, being picked up by Doug, and they head to the closet that Barney set up, where Paris prepares a Tallman mask. Ross meets with Billy and tells him to make sure Dana is taken care of, and also shows him Barney's picture as a prospective victim. Jim meets with Tallman, and after he leaves, Doug comes through the wall with a gun, with Paris as Tallman behind him. Doug knocks him out, and Paris switches places with the mayor. Jim tells Peck the next day that he wasn't impressed with Tallman and his lack of gumption, and says Peck should run for governor instead. Meanwhile, the agitators get set up in the mayor's office, and Peck gets a call about it, with Jim joining him. Dana shows up and joins the group, with Billy angrily confronting her about being a spy. Where was she all this time? Dana claims she was hiding from the police, and the others talk Billy down. Billy leaves the others and sets up the explosives, telling Ross over the radio that he's ready to go. Paris, as Tallman shows up, showing concern about his daughter, who's inside. As Dana asks him to come up and negotiate, and he agrees to Peck's shock. He calls out to Dana and the other students, admitting that mistakes were made. He wants to talk. He wants to get the situation settled. Paris, as Tallman, tells Peck he's through being his puppet, and Jim reiterates that he knew Tallman wasn't tough enough. Peck tells Ross to tell Billy to shoot Tallman, and Barney stops Billy just in time. Paris sets off a noisy squib, simulating a shot to his shoulder. Paris, as Tallman, tells the news reporters that the whole thing was set up by Peck, and the whole bunch of bad guys are arrested. Paris, as Tallman, goes to an ambulance where the real Tallman is watching the whole thing unfold on TV. And the IMF tell Tallman he'll be a free man if he testifies against Peck, and is reminded that Peck just tried to kill him. So Tallman agrees, having no choice. Tallman asks about his daughter, and Doug reveals that that was a ruse as well. And it turns out Tallman doesn't really care that much in the end anyway. So, mission accomplished, I guess. I'm going to give this episode a grade of a D-. I went into it thinking that it wasn't such a bad episode. Then I remembered, I kind of pictured it in my head a little bit, and I said, no, wait, this could be a really, really bad one, almost right down to an F. Then I noticed a few little good things about it, and I said, you know what, there's been worse than this, so I'm going to go with a D- on this one. Starting with the good. A few things. One of the things is I thought that Lloyd Bachner's performance as Mayor Tallman, leave the character aside, but Lloyd Bachner as an actor and then portraying the role of Steve Tallman in this episode, I thought was good. I also liked the apartment scene at the beginning of the episode. That was actually quite refreshing. And it harkens back to, apartment scenes that we would have back in seasons 2 and 3, where the IMF would talk about, what they were going to do and how things were going to unfold without kind of giving the whole story away. They would say, hey, Barney, have you got this? Is this all set? Yeah, Jim, it's all set. That sort of thing. That was actually kind of nice. And I thought that it was actually not a bad use of television time, frankly. So I didn't mind that one bit. Really, though, the good thing here, the best thing of this episode, is Leslie Warren's performance, I feel, as Kate. During the reunion scene, quote unquote, that she has with her would-be father, Tallman, the way that she emotes and the way that she portrays it, I really, really like that. She gives off, the aura of, really, really being hurt, about being bitter, about being angry, about, this guy who, didn't care for her, for the first 19 or 20 years of her life, and now suddenly here he is, and, expecting something. I can only imagine how that must feel. I have no firsthand experience in that regard, but it came across to me, and Leslie, and I think that this is really the best role. There have been a few other really, really good ones, but this role as, a college student, an angry college student, I guess, would be this is a really, really good role. One of the best, I think, for Leslie Warren. So that's the good. Moving on to the bad. At the end of this episode, Doug, I'm pretty sure it was Doug, asked Tallman, the mayor, after he inquires about, his daughter, was that even real? And Doug says, no, you know what, that wasn't real either. Does that bother you? And Tallman just goes like, no, not really. And you know how Tallman doesn't really care about the fact that, he was fooled and all of this stuff happened and, oh, well, I just want to move on. That is exactly how I feel about this episode. He doesn't care. You know what? Neither do I. This episode is just bad in the sense that the villains have all three kisses of death. I haven't had to talk about that in a while, but I will now. Usually I talk about lameness and schmuckery. Those are two of the kisses of death. And the third is when villains are just completely unengaging. I've said it before about certain antagonists, and I'm going to say it here because it definitely fits. I don't care about any of these people. The characters are just not engaging at all. I really don't care about Mayor Tallman. I don't care about Charles Peck. I don't care about Lieutenant Ross or Billy Walsh. Frankly, those three guys just have really eminently punchable faces to me. I just I really just want to go, I just want to smack that guy. I don't know what it is about those three, but I just want them to go away. There's nothing redeeming at all about those characters. This is, unfortunately, just not to spoil anything specifically, but I think people who are watching these videos already have kind of a gist of this. This episode is the first of a lot of episodes like this that we see in seasons 6 and 7, where the story is kind of whatever, and the antagonists suffer from at least two, if not all three, of those kisses of death. And we're just like, why do I care about this guy? Or in some cases, this woman, or these people, however you want to slice it. And that's not good. This is the first of those episodes that I think we've come across that really gives me that vibe of what we see. Not always, but in many episodes in the last two seasons, that's what we get. The lameness and schmuckery, it's very, very clear, almost from the outset, that the villains never really stood a chance against the IMF. The only thing that I think was even a little bit of oh gosh, is that going to work out the way that we expect, would be Billy Walsh as one of the antagonists. He's a bit of a wild card. He's a bit of a wild person. You can't really control him or really kind of predict so much what he's thinking. But still, Richard Kelton, the actor who plays Billy Walsh, I recognize him. He was in an episode of Dallas, which I remember some years later, and he has a very, very distinctive voice. But again, there's just something in the way his performance comes across. I just can't, find myself to really care one way or the other about this guy. I just don't. Just a final note, I looked up the write-up in the Mission Impossible dossier book. It's very, very short for this particular episode. But there is a comment about how this is more an episode for the show The Mod Squad. I never watched that show, but I can totally see what Patrick White in the dossier is saying. This is one of those episodes, like some of the others we've had this season, where it's like, I get it. This is a drama, and it is Mission Impossible because it features those actors. It features those, techniques and ways and means and things like that. But gee, is this story really a good fit for this show? And frankly, this one is not. Bottom line is, the plot really kind of doesn't come together. It's not engaging. It's not a meaningful hour of television to me, and not a great hour of television at all. Lloyd Bachner's performance is frankly wasted. The other guests are unmemorable. Other than Leslie Warren's performance, there's absolutely nothing redeeming about this one. It seems like this is one of those episodes where the writers wanted to try and juxtapose or kind of bring together or mesh, I don't know what level they wanted to do it, the vibe of the 1960s counterculture, which I think I mentioned at the beginning of this season in a few of the episodes or in the reviews, with an actual IMF mission. And this one seems to fall on the wrong side of both. It's neither here nor there. And the fact that now this is the air date, actually, as I saw, was January 2nd of 1971. So we're past even 1970, and the clock has turned, the calendar has turned. and it doesn't behoove the producers well to kind of try and shoehorn all of those things that they wanted from earlier episodes of this season into this one, and I think that's what they tried to do. I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you for watching this video. Please like this video. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and please leave your comments about this one. Again, unmemorable, so there probably aren't going to be a whole lot of comments, but I would love to hear what you have to say. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.